Hey guys, this is Daniel Dr. D, and I've been an observer for about 30 years. These are a couple of scopes we're going to, compare side by side. We got a Takahashi Mewlon 180, and there is a Takahashi Mewlon 210 over here. And I'll tell you a little bit about both of these telescopes and both these mounts. This mount running here is the Vixen SXD 2. And I have this running with the Starbuck 10, and this is a really nice mount. I think the load capacity is about 30 pounds or so, roughly, a little over that, but it's just a phenomenal mount for the Mewlon 210 or the 180. And the EM200 that you see over here is a little bit of overkill. This is more like for the Mewlon 250. I have a Mewlon 250 as well. We're not setting that up tonight. I'll be happy to review that in the future if anybody's interested in that. The EM200 is a kind of an interesting mount. These are actually my two favorite mounts on the planet, believe it or not. And this is 2024, and today a lot of enthusiasts are gravitating towards what are called strain wave mounts, which are pretty good for imaging. Some people use them visually. I have some issues with those mounts personally, so I don't particularly care for them. But if others like them, all the more to you, that's fine. Whatever works best for you. But I like the quality of the Starbuck 10. I just find it to be just the most amazing hand controller that was ever produced on any mount in the history of mounts. I mean, no matter what. It's just a phenomenal aid in the night sky is using this. It's just a joy to use. Now, there's a couple of differences with these mounts. The EM200 relies on Safari, okay? And I have a Skywire. You'll see these old Skywires right here, which you can't find anymore. And the reason for that is because I don't use Wi-Fi. I'm really against any kind of Wi-Fi devices because I don't like the issues of them disconnecting. I know some people are happy with them. I'm just not one of those people. I like things to be very reliable. I'm a real stickler about reliability and functionality. I don't want a telescope interrupting my observing time. I want the mount and the telescope out of my hair so that I can concentrate on observation itself. So I'm far from an equipment junkie, I can assure you. So what this EM200 does is that it relies solely on accurate polar alignment, and the mechanics do the rest. The polar scope is underneath here. I'll show you. So right here we have the polar scope. And the interesting thing about the TEMA mounts is they do not require you to level the tripod. So it doesn't matter how the tripod is leveled. All the leveling is done through this bubble level right here. And the altitude is adjusted from here on Polaris. And once you have those two set, you're good as gold. The mount is extremely accurate. I can't even tell you how incredible it is. It's really nice. Now, it does, like I say, rely on perfect polar alignment. Now, the Sphinx is interesting. This mount, you can either accurately polar align it, and it does have a very accurate polar scope that it uses under here with an illuminator that shuts off automatically after a couple of minutes, which you have to go into the settings, into the hand controller, and you have to let the mount know that you're polar aligning. And what that will do by telling the mount that is that it won't make any corrections in declination for any polar alignment error. Okay, so if you put it in non-polar alignment mode, then you don't have to be worried about polar alignment. You can just kind of point it in the general direction of north. All you do is level the tripod, point it in the direction of north, and what happens is that the computer, the software, has a pointing algorithm that will correct for any errors in polar alignment. Okay, these are things that you cannot get away with when you're doing imaging. In imaging, you have to have accurate polar alignment, very accurate. And that is what prevents you from getting any forms of drift, etc. Okay. Now, I really, like I say, I love these mounts. The load capacity on the TEMA is just under 40 pounds. They rated around 37. I think that's very realistic. You have to be careful when you look at the ratings of load capacities with mounts, because some companies like to include counterweights. This is really, I think, a very tacky approach to telling people what the load claims are. So make sure you differentiate whether the companies are including the counterweights with that load capacity. It's can be very confusing sometimes. For observation, I'm using the Teleview Plossels here. These are called the Smoothies, the NJ Smoothies. These came out, I think, in like the early 80s sometime. And we have a whole set of them. There's a few more of them over here on this tray. And you'll notice what's really interesting about these eyepieces, and why I absolutely love them so much, is because they have no grooves, no bevels on the barrel. And they're all that way, no matter which one you pick. And what's beautiful about that is, when you put it in a diagonal, you don't get any snagging effects. Snagging is when you pull the eyepiece out of the barrel and it snags on the collar that's inside of some of these diagonals. So just a convenient thing. This particular one here uses what's called a click lock by Bader Planetarium. And what they do is doesn't use any kind of compression ring or collar inside there. It just uses these little pinions inside that you just quick release it. So it's a really cool little diagonal. This is called the T2 Prism. I highly recommend Prism diagonals. If anybody tells you that they're not as bright, it's ridiculous. I've done so many side-by-sides you wouldn't believe all the comparisons I've done. Like I said, I've been observing 30 years. I've tested so many telescopes. I do all my reviews on cloudynights.com, which a lot of you probably know. And I've tested Dobsonians, refractors, Cassegrains, Mach Cassegrains, Mach Newtonians, and I just really love observing. I'm really into observing, but I love to compare scopes. I love to see how different telescopes behave. And the other thing too that I think is interesting is getting opinions from other observers, and being open to their opinions on what their perceptions of color are. As you know, the human eye is not a reliable source for color accuracy, but we have what we call perceived colors. And I think that's kind of fun to look up what star, what spectrum certain stars are, and see if you can kind of see what color some of the stars are. Now, I'm viewing from borderline skies, so there's a lot of light pollution here. And I'm on pavement here, which is thermally not recommended. However, I'm only about a mile from the Pacific Ocean. I'm in Southern California. We have wonderful seeing conditions out here. And when you look at stars at high magnification in a telescope, you see what are called these tiny airy disks. And this is just the nature of the way optics will show a star at high magnification. And you can just Google airy disk optics, and you'll see things that will give you kind of an illustration of what it looks like. So a little bit about the scopes. The 180 7-inch these are Dalkirkham, what they call Dalkirkham Cassegrains. And you'll notice here on the 180, the 7-inch, it uses a 3-vein spider. And what that generally produces are 6 faint diffraction spikes. Okay. I'm going to take you over here to the 210, which is 8.5 inch roughly here. Now I've removed the cap on the front here because I'm going to collimate this tonight on a star. And this uses a 4-vein spider. So what you'll see are 4 bright spikes in comparison. Some people find this annoying on planets, but there's a couple of things to consider when you're purchasing a telescope and this is a concern of yours. When you're viewing under light polluted skies, right, you have to think about what you're going to be viewing, which are going to be bright stars and bright planets, okay? Those are the kinds of things that you're going to see diffraction spikes. Personally, I don't mind them on stars. I think they look very pretty. They can be distracting when you're looking at planets because, it doesn't look organic, doesn't look natural the way you would see it, right? So, but remember, I'm in light polluted borderline skies, which is actually what you want when you're viewing planets. So the worst thing you can do when you're observing the planets, which is what these telescopes are really fun to use for as well, is the worst thing you can do is dark adapt your eyes. And I know this goes against common conventional wisdom. Many people will teach you to use red flashlights and dark adapt your eyes. But for the kind of viewing we're going to do tonight, we don't want that. And the reason for that is I wrote this article recently. It's on Cloudy Nights. It's called A Plausible Explanation for the Canals on Mars. You can just Google it. A plausible explanation for the canals on Mars. I'll link to it below. And you guys can just click on that link and that will take you to the article and explains all the reasons why and why you do not want to dark adapt your eye. Now, when you're going to dark skies, that's another story, you know, but we're near the ocean here where we get inversion layers, which keeps the cool air closer to the ground here, which creates some moisture. So later in the night, you will see moisture on the top of the tubes of the telescopes. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll go outside and I'll check the cars out to see if there's any moisture on there. And that usually is an indication of whether or not the seeing will be good. And seeing refers to the stability of the air. So yeah, it's you know, the situation for viewing the planets and stars are not necessarily applicable to deep sky. And when I say deep sky, I'm talking about galaxies and things of that sort, faint diffuse nebula, like emission nebula or reflection nebula or something you might see from dark skies. Then you want to dark adapt your eyes. But for what we're doing here, we're going to avoid that. And if you read that article, it'll explain everything, a plausible explanation for the canals on Mars. It'll explain all the reasons why, and it'll help you out. Which scope do I like? I actually prefer the Mewlon 180 over the 210. And the reason I like it is because the reduced aperture, there's a couple of reasons why. The mirrors is just slightly thinner overall. The mirror in the 210 is conical in shape. It has kind of a tapered, you can probably Google conical mirrors and you'll see the shape of it. But generally the Mewlon 180 is 7-inch. It's just so easy and adaptable to acclimating. It's just such a nice thing, you know, and I like it for that reason. The other thing too in particular is if you're viewing double stars, it's just, the 180 is wonderful because it has slightly less resolution and it causes the central area disk of the stars to look a little bit bigger in nature. And there's a really interesting article I wrote about it. It's called Put Your Stars on a Diet. Just Google Put Your Stars on a Diet and you can read that article and that'll explain all the reasons why. But getting back to the spider veins here, remember, it's going to be harder to see those spider veins, you know, with those diffraction spikes in light polluted skies. You're not going to see them as much because that light in the background is going to disperse. It's going to kind of disguise those diffraction spikes. And when you increase the magnification, the diffraction spikes tend to kind of diffuse themselves. So there's just all these things you learn over time. And you guys can always, you know, post comments if you have questions. I have decided to start writing or you know, start doing my own video reviews. Ed Ting started doing them. Todd Gross used to do them, but he didn't do videos. And it's kind of unfortunate because I think Todd Gross and Ed Ting were really the guys that did a wonderful job reviewing telescopes. And I don't do any imaging. I have absolutely no interest in imaging. If you want to do imaging, there's tons of imaging channels you can go to. But there's going to be very few, if any, observing channels. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on from now on. And I will discuss many things. I'll try to review as many telescopes and share many stories with you guys. If you find it interesting, to subscribe to my channel and I'll keep trying to update with more stuff. I am not interested in doing this for any monetary or financial reasons. I'm set with my life. I'm perfectly content. I just want to make that clear so you know people understand. This is Coda. Coda's 2 years old. He's an English bulldog. He's very sweet. This is my son Benjamin.
Hey Dad.
Yes.
I heard a fire alarm I heard a fire alarm.
Oh, very cool. Well, I'm doing a video right now. I'll talk to you after. Yeah. So anyway, when we get viewing tonight, we're going to look at a couple of things. I'm going to check out the star field for T Corona Borealis. This is a star that goes nova, not supernova, but nova from a companion star, about every 85, 87 years or so, it basically sheds off these layers of debris, and it's really incredible. And then what will happen is that star will brighten to something around second magnitude. And a second magnitude star is roughly the same brightness as Polaris, the North Star, which isn't really that bright. Some people think that it's a bright star, but reality is that Polaris is barely observable from the city, but you can see it if you know where you're looking. So I'll get back with you guys if anything else comes up. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this helps you out a little bit. And we'll be back at you soon.